The alarms on my console screamed before I even had my coffee in hand. I am Daniel Voss, a traffic controller at Orbital Gate 7, the busiest checkpoint above Earth. My job is simple: watch the ships, log them, clear them. But nothing about that morning was simple. 73 vessels dropped out of warp at once, engines sputtering, hulls scorched, distress signals blinking in a dozen different alien languages. My screen lit up red from corner to corner. I had never seen anything like it in 9 years of service. I opened a channel, my hands shaking slightly. Unknown fleet, this is Earth Orbital Control. State your identification and intention. The reply came broken, full of static. A voice, weak and trembling, spoke in accented but clear English. We are the last of the Korath. We ask for mercy. Every gate before yours has closed on us. I froze for a second. The Korath were a species I barely knew existed, mentioned only once in a briefing about Outer Rim colonies. I asked the obvious question. Closed you out? Why? The conquered has ruled us unfit, the voice said. Too few in number, too dependent on aid. They call it a mercy to let us die quietly instead of wasting resources on us. My stomach turned. I had heard whispers about the conquered's new policy, the so-called Purity Directive, but I never imagined seeing it happen in real time above our own planet. I patched the call straight to my supervisor, a sharp woman named Grace Whitfield, who ran station operations with an iron calm that nothing seemed to shake. She listened, her jaw tightening with every word. "How many ships did you say?" she asked. 73, ma'am, and more are dropping out of warp as we speak." She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she said the words that would change everything. "Clear them for landing, all of them." "Ma'am, that is outside my authority. That is outside anyone's authority without a council vote." "Then get me the council," she snapped. "But until they say no, my answer is yes." Within the hour, the Earth Unity Council was in emergency session. I was patched into the feed as a witness, my testimony required since I was the first point of contact. The chamber was full of tension. Delegates from every nation arguing over screens showing the desperate fleet still holding position above the planet, fuel reserves draining by the minute. A delegate named Priya Malhotra stood first, her voice firm. "We do not have the resources to support 73 ships of refugees. We have our own housing crises, our own hungry. Charity begins at home." Another delegate, an older man named Elliot Marsh, shook his head. "There is no such thing as charity that ends at a border. If we turn them away, we become no better than the conquered we claim to reject." The argument raged for nearly 2 hours. I watched, my throat tight, as vote after vote came in split down the middle. Then a young delegate named Naomi Okafor asked to speak. She was quiet, usually letting others take the floor, but this time her voice cut through the noise. "My grandmother came to this country with nothing but a suitcase and a 5-year-old son," she said. "She was told no by 3 separate nations before one finally said yes. That yes did not cost that nation anything but a little more food on the table and one more child in a classroom. Look what her son became. Look what I became. Tell me, if we say no today, what do we lose that is worth more than a chance like that?" The chamber went silent. Then one by one, hands rose in favor. The vote passed, 92 to 88. Earth would open its doors. I relayed the message back to the Korath ships, and I will never forget the sound that came through the comm channel next. It was not cheering. It was crying, deep and broken, the sound of beings who had given up hope and suddenly found it again. The first ship to land carried an elder named Senek, a Korath with silver skin and eyes like polished stone. I was there on the ground crew when the ramp lowered. He stepped out slowly, flanked by 2 younger Korath who looked ready to shield him from anything, expecting hostility even here. Instead, a young girl named Lily Barnes, daughter of one of the dock workers, ran up with a handful of wildflowers she had picked near the perimeter fence. She held them out without a word, too young to understand fear of the unknown. Senek knelt down, his hands trembling as he took the flowers. "In 40 years of running," he said quietly, "no one has offered us anything without asking for something back." That moment spread across every news feed on the planet within hours. It became the image people remembered: an old alien and a small child, kindness given freely. But not everyone was happy. 3 days later, a conquered envoy ship arrived in high orbit, sleek and silver, radiating quiet menace. Its representative, a tall being named Director Kale Thess, demanded an audience with the Council. I was assigned as part of the translation and logistics team, so I stood near the back of the chamber when he spoke. "You have sheltered species the Conquered has formally designated as burdens," Kale said, his voice smooth and cold. "This decision destabilizes trade agreements across 17 systems. Surrender the Korath and the others, or Earth will be cut off from Conquered technology exchange, permanently." Elliot Marsh stood, his voice steady despite the threat hanging in the air. "We did not ask the Conquered's permission to be decent, and we will not ask it now. The Korath stay, so does everyone else who comes to us in need." Kale's expression twisted with something between disbelief and disdain. "You will regret aligning yourselves with the unworthy." "We have never once regretted helping someone stand back up," Elliot replied. "Not once in our whole history. We are not about to start." The envoy left without another word, and for a tense week, no one knew what would come of it. Trade routes flickered with uncertainty. Some allies distanced themselves, afraid of Conquered retaliation, but Earth did not reverse its decision. And then something remarkable began to happen. The Korath, it turned out, were master engineers, their small population having survived for centuries by building efficient, self-sustaining habitats in the harshest environments imaginable. Within weeks, a Korath engineer named Vesa Dorn redesigned the water reclamation systems in 3 refugee housing blocks, cutting waste by half. Her design spread quickly to older human infrastructure struggling with drought in several regions. Then came the second wave of arrivals. A species called the Ithrani, small, insect-like beings the Conquered had labeled non-contributive due to their short lifespans, turned out to possess an extraordinary gift for medicine. An Ithrani healer named Doran Vex worked alongside human doctors at a coastal clinic and developed a treatment method that slashed recovery times for a common respiratory illness that had plagued the region for years. I remember visiting that clinic myself, watching Doran move quickly between patients, his multiple small hands working with impossible precision, while a human nurse named Claire Whitmore assisted him, the two of them talking and laughing like old friends despite having met only weeks before. "They called us useless," Doran told me once in his careful, clicking accent. "Because we do not live long. They never asked what we do with the time we have." Word of what was happening on Earth spread far beyond our system. More refugee fleets began changing course towards Sol, choosing the long, dangerous journey over waiting to be turned away elsewhere. Earth's population swelled with new faces, new languages, new songs sung in strange and beautiful tones over kitchen tables and in city parks. Not everyone adjusted easily. There were arguments over housing, over resources, over unfamiliar customs. I saw shouting matches outside distribution centers, tension in crowded schools where children of a dozen species tried to learn together for the first time. But there was no violence, no riots, only the slow, difficult work of people learning to live beside each other. A turning point came nearly 2 months after the first ships landed. A massive solar storm, larger than any recorded in decades, threatened to knock out power grids across 3 continents. It was Vesa Dorn's Korath engineering teams, working alongside human crews led by an engineer named Oliver Grant, who devised an emergency shielding solution overnight, protecting critical infrastructure just hours before the storm hit. I stood in the control room that night, watching the readings hold steady while cities that would have gone dark stayed lit. Oliver turned to Vesa afterward and said simply, "We could not have done this without you." Vesa's silver eyes shone with something like pride. "We could not have done this without a place to stand and try," she answered. The Conquered sent no more threats after that. Perhaps they realized that cutting Earth off from their trade meant losing access to breakthroughs their own scientists had missed for generations. Perhaps they simply grew tired of watching the so-called unworthy prove them wrong again and again. Whatever the reason, the pressure quietly faded, and Earth's doors stayed open. 6 months after that first frantic morning at Orbital Gate 7, I stood on the observation deck with Grace Whitfield, watching new ships arrive. No longer an emergency, but a routine, steady rhythm of hope finding harbor. Families from a dozen worlds moved through the gates below us, children running ahead of tired parents, elders walking slowly with the particular relief of those who no longer have to look over their shoulder. Grace nodded toward the crowd. "Look at that," she said quietly. "None of them look like they're waiting to be sent away anymore." I thought of Senek, the old Koreth elder, and the wildflowers a small girl had offered without thinking twice. I thought of Doran healing strangers he had never met before. I thought of Vesa's solar shields lighting up cities that would have gone dark. The galaxy had looked at all of them and called them unworthy, burdens, unfit to belong anywhere. Earth had simply looked back and said, "Come in, there is room." That, I have come to believe, is the truest measure of any people. Not how they treat those who can offer them power or profit, but how they treat those who can offer them nothing at all except the simple fact of needing help. Earth was never the strongest fleet in the galaxy, or the richest, or the most advanced. But on that morning and every morning since, we were the ones who opened the doors. And in the long run, I have a feeling that will matter far more than any weapon ever could.